Hello everyone. In this session, we learn about habitat and behavior. Previously, we learned the two important things in identifying birds. That is the size and shape of the birds, colors and markings. Now, apart from identification, we'll also try to learn where to find some birds. Okay, so in habitat and behavior, we'll mix these two together about identification and where and how to find birds. So, what is a habitat? Here, we're talking about birds' habitat. Birds' habitat means where the birds can find their food, uh, a good place to make nest or get shelter or protection from predators, and where they literally can survive. It's called birds' habitat. So let's look at the habitat what I'm going to discuss today. We are going to talk about two different types of habitat, that is a larger landscape habitat and birds habitat in that landscape. I'll go slowly so that it's easier for you to understand with examples. Larger landscape habitat will take water bodies. So water bodies could be lakes, pond, marshes, rivers and streams, and even oceans and seas. So these are the larger landscape habitat. Forest. We have a coniferous forest high up in the Himalayas where the trees are very different and gets very cold and also it snows. And you have rainforest and evergreen forest and you have moist and dry deciduous forest. And you have other larger landscape habitat, that is the cold and hot deserts. So cold deserts are above the coniferous forest in the Himalayas where there are no trees. It's completely open and barren, and it gets very cold. Uh, and the hot desert we have in India are in Rajasthan and Gujarat with sand dunes and open area. Open shrubs. Okay, not just open shrubs, but we'll include in the open shrubs the grasslands, agriculture, and the fields. These all come under one kind of habitat. Of course, humans, we people are everywhere, and we have created certain habitats for certain species. In the cities, village gardens, we find birds. Some birds have adapted to live in this human habitation. So let's take some example of the bird's habitat. We spoke about larger landscape habitat, the water bodies. In that, let's take a lake. Let's look at the bird's habitat in this lake. So we have waders. Waders are birds like sandpipers, shanks, plovers, stilts. These birds have long legs, okay, long beaks, and they wade in the water. That means they walk in the shallow water. So where they are found, where are its habitat, is at the edge of the lake on the shore, so they can walk and feed. So this way, it will help us to identify what birds uh, likely to be found in the shore. So it's not just identification, also to look for birds. I'll come to more examples. Herons and bitterns would like to be at the shore again because they hide in the grass or the reeds and catch fish, or they can also be found in the islands, whereas grebes and ducks would prefer to be in the middle of the water or in a deeper water because they swim, and some ducks and grebes dive inside the water to feed on aquatic plants or insects. So these are the habitats of these birds. So if you learn slowly what some species of birds prefer, what kind of habitat, then actually you can go look for these birds. We'll take more example in different habitat. Let's take rainforest. Rainforest will have, or an evergreen forest, which is very thick and dense forest, will have very tall trees. So some birds, like minivets, would prefer to be on the top canopy. Uh, they do come down to middle or lower canopy, but not common. They usually prefer on top and in the open part of the trees because they do feed on small insects and also flower nectars. So, and they like to fly, or we see them flying on top of the canopy or above the forest. And if you come inside the forest, you'll find birds like trogons, which where they prefer to be in the middle canopy or the middle of the forest. That's where they hunt insects and also move through the forest in the middle canopy. Very rarely they do come to the forest, close to the forest floor, and very rarely they go to the top canopy. They always prefer to middle or slightly lower than a middle canopy. Then you have thrushes or even babblers. They prefer to be on the forest floor because uh, they go through the leaf litter and look for insects. Sometimes you do find them in the middle of the trees. That's because they may get scared or when they're flying away, but they always prefer to be in the forest floor. We'll come to behaviors next, but some of the behavior you just saw here, like thrushes to be on the forest floor, trogons in the middle canopy, and middle minivets on the top canopy. These are some of the behaviors of the birds which will help us in identifying, and also these are their habitats. Let's look more into behavior. What kind of behavior we are talking about? We are looking at how the bird sits or stands. These are called posture. How they sit, how they stand, how the bird walks, or how they fly. What are the different flight patterns, and what they eat and how they eat. So let's take an example. If you look at these two pictures here, these two, both the birds, one is a pied bush chat, one is the Indian robin. And for a new bird watcher or a bird guide who is becoming a new into the coming into this field new, will get confused initially in identifying these two birds. Uh, one of the reasons are these two birds are found in the same habitat, that is open scrub habitat, and they like to come on top of bush or rock and sit. And for a new bird watcher, look at the color. Both have very similar color, and at first glance, sometimes it can be confusing. However, look at the sitting position. We're talking about the bird behavior, how they sit. Bush chat keeps the tail straight to the body almost all the time. And whereas robin keeps the tail up, it does keep the tail down, but as soon as it sits, it brings the tail up and goes down or keeps it up. So almost all robin families keep the tail up, whereas all bush chats keep the tail down. And some birds do it differently. If you look at these herons, most herons sit crouched down, whereas some birds like lapwings and plovers, they try to stand straight up. And some birds uh, keep their body to their leg in a different position. For example, if you look at this warbler, they keep their body horizontal to their legs. Okay, you can see it very clearly here. And some birds, like flycatchers, they keep their body almost straight with the legs like this. So, with these kind of behavior in birds, you can almost narrow down what family of birds you saw, like a flycatcher because it's sitting straight, or was it a warbler because it was sitting like this. you can almost narrow it down to the certain family of birds. Walking. So we spoke about walking, and earlier that we'll be learning to identify birds, how it will help us. So you'll be surprised that not all birds, even commonly found around you, uh, they don't walk. It's very interesting. Take the examples here: the sandgrouse, and pipits. They spend a lot of time on the ground and they walk. So are the pigeons, miners. You have chicken. All this walk, correct? However, other common birds like accenters, sparrows, babblers, they don't walk, they hop. Okay, so when you observe all this, it will help you in identification, because many times you may not get a good view of the color of the bird. Okay, you may see that bird on the ground. For example, you take the babbler, you may see on the ground far away, you're not getting a good view. Okay, you see some bird moving, and babblers can be size of the dove, and the dove actually walks on the ground, whereas babblers, they don't walk, they hop. So by observing and by knowing the babblers hop whereas dove walk, you can rule out it was not a dove, it could be a bird like babbler. Okay, so this is important to know and to observe bird how they move. Let's uh, look at the other behavior. Uh, Certain birds, like you saw how they act while moving, even they do have this behavior of moving some of the body parts, like wagtails. Wagtails move their tail constantly, and by just looking at the behavior. Look at this. This is a gray wagtail. It's moving its tail constantly. So by learning this, you would know that when you see a bird, again, not a great view, and constantly the bird is moving the tail, you can narrow it down, at least it's wagtail. Okay. Same with the birds like fantail. And if you get a good, you don't get a great view far away, light is low, no marking, but the bird is constantly jumping and fanning its tail. So you can narrow it down, oh, the bird I saw was a fantail, and then try to look for the marking on the color. But you already narrow it down to the family of fantails. Food of the birds, what they feed, will help us not just identification, but also where to find them. Okay, just look at this example. If you look here, the bird is the white-cheeked barbet feeding on fruits, the figs. So if you know what birds feed on, it will be easy for you to find where the bird can be found. If you come across a fig tree, or if you know where the fruiting tree is, and if it's fruiting, you are very likely to find certain birds which feed on fruits. Or you come across a fruiting tree, then you can expect these birds are found there. So it's easy to find certain birds. This way you can show your guest a different bird species in different habitat. Let's look at more example and look carefully here. You can see the stork walking in the shallow water with the long legs, and poking its long beak to look for fish, crabs, or large insects. So the shallow water is the habitat for the stork to find its food, and its behavior is to walk through the shallow water and jab its beak to catch its food. So you saw the behavior and its habitat where the stork is found. Other interesting behavior in which will help us to identify birds are how they catch their food. You saw how the stork catches its food. Here, some birds, what they do, sit on a branch, look for flying insect. When they see a flying insect, they take off from the branch where they are sitting go catch the insect, and they come back to the same branch to feed on the insects. This kind of behavior is called fly catching. There are few species of birds do this kind of behavior, like the bee eater and the fly catchers. They sit on the branch, look around for insects, they swoop down and catch the insect, come back almost all the time in many species to the same branch, kill the insect on the branch and swallow them. So if you know this behavior, again, you can try to narrow it down. This is a flycatcher or a bee eater. Another interesting behavior to know of some birds is how they hunt their food, right? So here is the common kestrel and black-winged kite. They feed on small or large insects, small rodents or birds, and they are usually found in the open grassland. So when they have to catch a small rodent, they have this very interesting way of hunting. That is, they fly and they flap their wing rapidly and stay at the same spot. If you look here, this black-winged kite, it's staying at the same spot and it's flapping its wing, okay, and looking down. And when it finds a small mice or large insects, and it dives down to catch its prey. So with this, knowing the behavior of these birds, you can, from far away looking, from the size, you can say, oh, that bird is hovering and the size looks like a black-winged kite or a kestrel. Flight pattern. Um, Once you start looking more at birds, different birds, you will realize, if you give more attention, that not all birds fly in the same style. They have different flight style, actually. We call flight pattern. Let's look at it. Soaring and gliding. Look at this video carefully. You saw this video, right, where the eagle has spread its wing, okay, and it's gliding, okay. It's not flapping its wing at all. It's just with the help of its wing spread, it's gliding. And another thing some big birds do is soaring. Soaring here, uh, usually in the morning when the sunlight comes up and it becomes warm, hot air rises up. So birds like birds of prey, eagles, vultures, even big storks and pelicans, they take advantage of this hot air rising, we call thermal current, and they go in circles and climb up high in the sky, and they can go far away or they can see from up where to go, where to find food. So this is called soaring. Look at the example of this big, massive flock of black bazas soaring. If you look here, they are not flapping at all, correct? They just spread their wing, going in circles, using the thermal current to fly. And birds like hornbills have a very different flight pattern. Okay, next time if you get to see any hornbills, look carefully. They flap their wing and they flatten it out and they glide. They flap their wings and glide. This is a typical hornbill flight. Woodpecker. Woodpecker has a very interesting flight. If you look carefully, they fly very fast and you can hear them flight also, pat, 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 rapid uh, flight, wing beats, okay, and the bird will climb up, and as soon as it climbs up, it closes its wing, and when it goes down, again it opens and flaps its wings to get the momentum to climb up. When it climbs up, again it closes its wing. Look at it carefully, and once you look at the woodpecker flying, you will never forget that it has a unique style of flying. And many birds also fly in a straight line. They continuously flap their wings and fly in the straight line. So these kind of flight pattern will also help in identifying, oh, that flight looked like a woodpecker, the hornbill, or it's gliding or soaring. It could be an eagle or any bird of prey. Some birds have tendency to flock together and fly in large groups, okay, like miners, starlings, and some of the waders or shorebirds tend to fly together. So this kind of behavior will also help us in identifying some birds. So what we learned about the habitat and behavior, let's put it across to our Indian skimitar babbler, correct? Where they are found habitat, forest, villages, and gardens. This is their habitat. They Where they are found in this habitat is in undergrowth or low bushes, not on top of the trees. Very rarely on top of the trees. It's only the undergrowth. And one of the behavior is they're often calling, means you hear them more than seeing them. That's one of the behavior. And also they're called skulkers because they go through leaf litter or in moving around in the undergrowth looking for insects. Okay, this is what they feed. Let's look at scenario state. Habitat, again, forest, villages, and garden. And where its habitat in this larger habitat is uh, trees, from top of the trees all the way to the down. They occupy all the part of the habitat. And their behavior, they're very very active and very busy. You very rarely you see them, the scenario is to be sitting and doing nothing. Very rare. They're always busy, very active, because what they feed on insects and seeds and also nectar. So they're very busy looking for their food. So I hope you got an idea about what to look for when you go out watching birds, right? Size and the shape, color and markings, and their behavior, which will help you in identifying birds, and also where the bird found. If you know its habitat, then you can plan your trip of bird watching accordingly. If somebody wants to come with you, the guest, the tourist or bird watcher, and if you become a good guide, you will know, okay, if I take some guest uh, to the forested area, I can find these birds on the top canopy. Inside the forest, I can find trogons, and at the forest floor, I can find babblers. And from there, if I go to the water body, I can find different birds like ducks, herons, egrets, etc. So I hope you're getting an idea about finding birds and identifying birds. Okay, so go now if you have time and put all this you learned now about their behavior and habits, where to look for what birds in the field, and go try it out. Okay, enjoy.